when you look at social media and you look at even the media, it's just like these two sides, or it's like it's dividing each other, and it's like, hey, either you're on the side of good or you're on the side of evil. Like that's it. And I think if you can consider the other side, you're open to ideas, it might cement what you believe even more, or it might say, hey, you know what, maybe I'm not fully right.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The Two Things You Shouldn't Talk About. I'm joined this week by Amir Shiekh. Amir, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me, Josh. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so this is an interesting topic for sure. Just this idea of, I suppose, communicating better and finding ways to talk about difficult subjects like politics and religion, which is what we're all about. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to my listeners in case they haven't heard of you, because I wasn't familiar with your platform before looking into it a little. So why don't you go ahead and explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. So I think Ponderly is the platform, and I started around COVID time, but really, the core of it, or the drive of it, has been in my head for years prior, where even with friends, family, and society, just the divisiveness and just the anger and vitriol and just all the other negative stuff, I've seen has gone worse, over time. And so I think it got to a point where I saw, friends and family, and, I had to do something about it. And so I thought it was a good opportunity to start a platform where, I can do the opposite of what most of the platforms today do, which is divide people. I think, from there we've been, testing focus groups, developing, listening to users. And so now we've rebranded to Ponderly. And so here we are today. And so I think what makes our platform different is that we produce original content. We write it ourselves. But instead of saying, hey, trust me, I know what I'm talking about, whatever the topic is, we basically have two writers that specialize on each of the sides. And so the reader basically gets both sides, and they get to decide for themselves, what's right or wrong, versus me telling you, what's right or wrong. So that's very unique. And then we have integrated many social media features in there that are popular, like Instagram and such, so that you can have your own community and really have a one place for everything. So.
Yeah, it sounds like the genesis and the idea behind this is similar to this podcast, really, where I think it was probably a similar experience where I was looking at social media, seeing people arguing about, Trump, Hillary Clinton at that point, like you said, over the pandemic. And just like you, I wanted to try and find a way to present the different sides of the argument in a way that I've heard it described as steel manning the other side, so allowing the other side to present it as clearly as possible, and then allowing people on the other side to present theirs as well. So it's kind of, I think people online, they tried to find ways to present the opposing argument in the weakest way possible and try to compromise. And I think it might have been maybe Jordan Peterson actually that said, or someone I listened to on a podcast one time, but they said, in order to best understand someone else's point of view, you should try and articulate it as clearly as possible in a way that they would actually agree with, or that you think they would agree with. So, I think I saw the exact same things that you were seeing in terms of poor standards of communication on both sides. So, in particular, do you have any ideas what could be causing that, or why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, I think I love history, and I think that some of the things that we see today, we think are unique to today, and they are not. However, with the divisiveness, it's definitely amplified, and that's because of one thing, and it's technology. That's the only thing different from human history. But, all of the issues we have today were around 100,000 years ago, or thousands of years ago. It's just, a lot of it we weren't able to capture. So like when a young person, for example, 100 years ago said something stupid or obnoxious, it would go to their local friend circle, and that was it. And now it's, you can go viral and reach millions of people. And I think the problem is with social media, what most people don't understand is, there's algorithms, and it promotes, controversial content, or it promotes content that, people want to click on, not that's valuable, but it's maybe funny or entertaining, or, maybe it makes you feel like your idea is more correct or not correct, or whatever the intention is. And when you see enough of it, you start to formulate an opinion, and that opinion isn't really based on credible evidence or facts. And so, but people take that, and millions of people take that, and so it can really change the view of people in a negative way, especially knowing that the algorithms are designed to get clicks, and they're not designed for truth, or they're not designed for credibility. They're designed literally just for clicks. And so I think that's really what is a game changer. And everybody obviously has a smartphone and technology in general. And so I think that's what's really, and it really amplified it. But the problem has always been there. I mean, people say the good old days. I mean, the good old days we were, torturing and killing and doing all those bad things too. It's not like it's unique to today.
Right. Yeah. So it's you think there was kind of a pre-existing, almost mental condition that technology has kind of made worse in a lot of ways, because it's giving people access to those impulsive thoughts, or thoughts that would normally not quite get the attention that they would get these days online. So what is it, I guess, what is it that people are, what is it that's appealing to people about these topics that are more controversial or more edgy, that you think is just grabbing their attention in the ways that a regular run-of-the-mill opinion might not?
Yeah. Well, I think, unfortunately, the truth and reality is not as fun or entertaining. And it doesn't really, in many cases, we as humans, we like to see things, simplify, understand things. And I think most things, especially when it comes to ideologies, are extremely complex, and probably more complex than any one person can understand. And so instead of just saying, hey, I will never understand, or I don't have the capacity to, we tell ourselves, hey, I know the answer. I know the truth because I heard from this. And so I'm smart enough to know, and you're not smart enough to know. It's not a matter of you're not smart enough. You just don't have the ability. There's too much data out there, for one person to consume. Let alone the data that we consume today is purposely misleading in many cases. So, you might even think like, hey, you're getting the truth, but you're not. But yeah, I think a lot of it is driven by that, it's a survival instinct as well. It's, if we're in the woods or out in nature, in order to survive, if you see a shadow, you might assume it's a lion or a predator or something. It probably isn't, but if the people who survive will think that way, they'll sometimes get it right and they'll survive. And the people who don't care, they might get killed. And maybe that's a primitive example, but it's the same kind of play that we have. And it also goes on the tribalism where we have a sense of belonging, and whether that goes with religion or any other group, we feel innate kind of comfort and satisfaction, or I don't know what the right word is, that we belong to a group and we feel comfortable, we have a purpose, all of those things. And so when somebody has ideas outside of that group, it's a threat to your group. And so we automatically start to find things, well, what they're saying is not right because of this or that. And, so, but again, it just goes back to just simplifying. And these issues are extremely complex and they have a lot of history. And it's just, I think, what my purpose kind of on Ponderly is really not even about the facts, because I think the facts in many cases are not important. When we look at arguments or disagreements, I think it's more about the method of communication. We're just not effectively communicating. And I think if we can get effective communication, I think the facts will, that's secondary, or, that's really not as important as we think.
So by that, you mean, who is right and who is wrong is less important? Is that what you mean by the facts?
No. So for example, if I make a statement that, let's say the earth is round, right? Or and you say the earth is flat, or vice versa. And we start talking about facts. Well, we have images, from space. Oh, but the other person said, well, they're fake, or photoshopped, and, back and forth or whatever. You can go through that endless cycle, and very likely, I don't know if I'm guessing you've never been to space. So, you can't really say, like I've seen it myself. You have to kind of rely on somebody. The facts will just go back and forth. But if, for example, if you trust me as a person and you have faith in me, I can tell you almost anything and you will believe it. And if someone says that I am incorrect, then you will do whatever you can to defend it, or you will look the other way when you see evidence to attack my credibility. And we all do it to a certain extent. Some people do it more blindly than others, but that's really what it comes down to, is that, we're protecting our tribe, and we're protecting ourselves in the sense when we do that. So, I know a lot of people always look at the negative things. There's a lot of positive, when it comes to religion or groups in general, because in groups we are stronger, but it does come with consequences. And some of those consequences, obviously, we see today.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, already we're touching on a lot of different subjects. So let's start off just by saying then, I guess your primary mission, if I'm understanding correctly, isn't necessarily the educational side, although that's important in terms of being able to thrash out ideas, see which is right and wrong. If anything, it's more about just that communication of trying to allow people to express opinions in a more measured, more considerate way. Would that be fair to say?
I think it's more creating an environment where you can consider the other side, right? And I think if you can consider the other side, you're open to ideas, it might cement what you believe even more. Or it might say, you know what, maybe I'm not fully right. Or maybe, where in most cases what it is somewhere in the middle. Like, I'm partially right on this, partially right on that. But I think you have to have that space. When you look at social media and you look at even the media, it's just like these two sides, or it's like, like it's dividing each other. And it's like, hey, either you're on the side of good or you're on the side of evil. Like that. That's it.
Right.
Those are the only two choices. And so I think that's where we want to break that up and say, it's not really a good and evil thing or a bad and good thing. It's about, it's a lot more complicated. Here's the whole picture, and you make the decision for yourself. And maybe, again, it's not about changing minds. We're not about telling people what's right or wrong. And so I think it's more about that space. And I don't think that exists today, at least in the mainstream that I've seen, a space where people can do that or feel comfortable to do that.
Yeah, if anything, you would say that these kind of online platforms, such as what you've created in Ponderly, and also with podcasting and things like that, that's where a lot of these long form discussions, or in your case, it's not a tweet, it's a longer form argument that's being presented. The more nuanced stuff is kind of, people have to go looking for it a little bit, I think. And, I know that there's positives and negatives to technology. As you've said, there's a lot of good things as a result. But in your opinion then, so obviously if technology is something that's causing an issue, what are some of the things that are going through your mind in terms of thinking of a solution to that? How can we redeem technology?
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to, making sure that we're not demonizing other ideas outside of ourselves. And, that's really, a big part of it. And, once you can kind of eliminate that and say, okay, Josh is a human being. I might disagree with Josh, but that's okay. I can, and to understand that, hey, there's things that, I think are right that might not be right. Right. And so it's not about right or wrong. It's about, being able to listen, first of all. And I think if we take that first step, like the other steps will kind of fall in line. Most people in general, like humans, are smart. They're smart in general. I know we're dumb. I think when we use technology in many cases, or when we use our tribalism, we give up our individuality and we start to default to, well, this is what I should believe or whatnot. But, in general, we're pretty smart. And I think, with the media and social media, it makes, if you just scroll around, you might think people are really dumb and there's just a bunch of idiots out there, but it's not. There's not. And so I think we got to have faith in that. It's just more, we want to create that environment where, people can realize like, hey, it's different here. Like, I'm not here to make a point. I'm not here to attack somebody. I'm here to just to understand, and maybe I'll benefit, from that. And it does take a certain stage of life and a certain kind of environment to do that. And I always give this example of like a restaurant where, if you go to a McDonald's or if you go to a 5-star restaurant, the rules might not be any different if you look at the technical rules, but the behavior is very different. And the same person that goes to McDonald's will behave differently than if they go to a 5-star. They'll dress differently, all of those things.
Right.
And so I think
Expectations are different.
Yeah, right. And so I think that's where, kind of an analogy to where us, like we're not going to have very many different rules, but I think if we create that environment, people will come with a different mindset, even though they otherwise would behave differently.
Yeah, just in my head, I'm thinking of other social media platforms, thinking of things like Twitter and Facebook, and I'm trying to think what it is about those platforms that are like what is fostering, for want of a better term, this kind of misbehavior, this bad behavior, or lower expectations of communication. Is there anything you've identified? Because I'm trying to think: is it the whole mechanism of likes and comments? Is it the algorithms? What could it be?
Yeah, it's a combination. I think it's the format, it's the algorithms, it's where people get the benefits. So, for example, if somebody wants to grow their account following, they have to be active and they have to be involved in things maybe they might not want to, but that's how they're going to get the attention. And if somebody is just saying boring stuff, it's very unlikely that they're going to get the activity that they want, the attention that they want, whether they're selling something or just getting followers or whatnot. And so it's more the system, and what the incentive is, of the system. If you go to like politics, for example, I think a lot of times, and I'm saying rightfully so, a lot of politicians get a lot of slack, but I think sometimes when you put yourself, in their shoes, it's not as easy or it's not as simple, as it looks, and so I think it's the same thing that applies for all of us. We're just very quick to criticize, and not very quick to understand, or help. Even help is even
Sure.
the next step from there. And we just want to make points and say, "Hey, I told you I was right and you were wrong." So
Yeah, exactly, and it's difficult to redeem a platform where the culture has already been set. I feel like so it's difficult, for example, on Facebook or on Twitter to promote an account or a page that behaves, or the expectation in the comment section is that you'll behave a certain way because there's already this kind of ecosystem of trolls, and also, like you said, the page is set up in a way to reward those who get a certain amount of engagement from people, even if it's not healthy engagement. So, in considering these sort of things, whenever you had this idea, what are some of the things that you kind of learned that were good, and what are some of the things that you wanted to change whenever you did something yourself?
yeah, yeah. One thing I found, I especially early on when I did like focus groups, for example, I would have, a diverse group of people from, even a PhD level to, a young kid. And, I found like intelligence doesn't really play a factor. And I think that's kind of the default where people think like, hey, there's, more intelligent, less intelligent, or experienced and not. I think those human emotions that, we touched on a couple of them, they're pretty universal and they're primitive and they're instinctual in many cases. So I think, kind of honing in on that. That's why you got to focus on the environment. So like, for example, we have introduced gamification. And so, we reward people for, let's say, making a productive comment. We're not going to punish you for not, but, doing things like that where it's more, getting people to participate in a productive way. So you can kind of give that honey thing where you're, creating that environment. We do very much believe in the First Amendment, though. So we're not going to censor unless again, you threaten somebody or, do anything illegal like that. And I think it's really important that people are able to speak, in that sense, as long as they're not violating those things. But it's really, again, it's just building that environment and that in that place where people feel comfortable enough to listen and be open, be themselves. A lot of times I think on social, another example is people are on there to show off their wealth or show off their whatever they want to show off. And here it's more, we want people to show up, but we want them to show off their brain and their thoughts and their ideas. So it's more like a brain show off versus a, hey, how many cars I have or whatever else people are showing. So, but yeah, it takes some time because I think the status quo is the status quo and everybody's doing that. And for us, I think, to say, hey, we're going to do something different and, it's also going to be beneficial. It's going to take some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I definitely want to give you time at some point to really talk us through the workings of Ponderly and how the website works. But you kind of touched on some ideological stuff there, certainly in terms of the First Amendment and really what is one of the big concerns these days with social media, particularly, which is things like their codes of conduct and their ethical standards, freedom of speech. How do all these things, how they all interplay? So, going back to, I guess the root or the basic sort of fundamental ideas of what you're trying to create. So, how much free speech is good, and how much are you seeking to limit? Because obviously, when you think about it, there are things like trolls or people with abusive comments. So you have to have some restrictions. But in your mind, is it better to err on the side of caution or to promote as much free speech as possible? And what are some of the things that you were kind of thinking through?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're on the App Store and the Google Play Store. That's primarily where we want people to engage with us. And in order to be on the host on those, you have to follow some of their rules. So, like we have to put in like blocking and reporting and kind of all that. So we have to follow that. But outside of that, with the content and what people can say, as long as they don't violate those threatening things, I don't think there should be a limit. I think my view kind of is, if someone has a terrible idea, then it's probably better that everybody hears it and sees for themselves it's a terrible idea, versus me, Amir, or any one person being a gatekeeper and deciding, what's a good idea or not. Because I might think it's a bad idea, but that doesn't mean it's a bad idea, right? And again, I'm saying outside of obviously violence or any kind of, anything illegal in that sense. But yeah, so that's kind of my philosophy. I mean, it's just, if someone is that bad and you think they're that bad, then you should actually want them to be seen, because then other people will agree with you. Hey, look how bad this person is, versus, you kind of censoring it. And usually censorship in that sense, in the long run, especially backfires. People, especially today, maybe 100 years ago, it was different with newspapers and slow moving, but today it's like everything's on social and like it's going to come out, one way or another. So you can't, censorship actually will do the opposite.
Yeah, and I know there's different interpretations of what constitutes violence, especially online. And I know Google and Apple probably have their own beliefs, but let's just say, for example, if someone said like Black, white, Asian, Mexican, whatever, if a particular race is subhuman and we shouldn't talk to them, someone posted a comment like that on your page, would that be something that you instinctively would think that would violate our rules? Or is that something where you would be like, well, that's an opinion, that's someone should be able to air, and then let the community deal with that?
Yeah, it's an opinion. I mean, it's a terrible opinion, but it's an opinion. We can't be police officers of people's opinion, because I promise you, I have some opinions that I think are great that somebody else thinks are terrible too. So if I use that same logic, then, I'm going to be censored by a lot too. So we have to kind of draw our line and say, okay, violence or, anything illegal or harmful to children or things like that, like that's a line that nobody can cross. But outside of that, we can't. We have to be smarter than that and say, hey, all of us have said dumb things. All of us have done dumb things, and we will do and say dumb things. That's part of being human. But as long as we don't cross that line, there is a lot of benefit, to free speech, and there's a lot of benefit to these ideas. It's not a coincidence that many of the civilizations in history, up to modern, that, when you enable, freedom in every sense, you have the most advancements, most prosper. And, obviously, there's also consequences. And, if I work out, for example, I'm generally going to be healthier, but downside is sometimes I might get hurt. I might drop something on my, but you can't pick on that and say, okay, because I might sprain my ankle, I'm not going to work out anymore. Right. So we have to look at what the kind of the net benefit is overall. And the net benefit is far outweighs the downside. If you look at history.
Yeah. So it's like exercising the muscle of society, communicating freely and effectively, and like you said, some people might air things that are reprehensible and shouldn't be tolerated, but it's you allow people to say it, and then they deal with the consequences in return. And I know, it's to play devil's advocate, people try to say that things that are hurtful it's violence, it's violence of words, but obviously that's not something that's really compatible with the First Amendment. And I think it's sort of a difficult thing to, I'm sure for you guys it's a difficult thing, trying to keep within the guidelines and the restrictions of Apple, Google, and those sorts of things, because they probably have a somewhat different opinion in a lot of cases. But thinking of these, or were you going to say something there?
Oh, I was going to say they don't manage like internal, but they make us put in certain things within the within our platform, like technical stuff, development stuff. To they make us put in certain safety things and certain things like that, but they don't tell us like, hey, you can't say this. Now, technically, I guess you can say they do have monitor our terms of conditions and all of that, which we do, but they're not gonna, like, if somebody made a bad comment, they're not gonna come in and be like, hey, like, you need to get that removed, unless, I mean, I guess if somebody reported it and it got to them, but even then, like, they're not going to get involved in something like that, unless it was something like violence or something like that.
Yeah, well, do you remember the whole Parler situation?
Yeah, I think I was following that, and I think and this is where I err on the side of caution. Like, most of the time we don't have the full story, and I obviously don't have the full story, and so I don't know the full story, so I can only go by what is there. But I can also imagine that I don't know the whole story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all I remember from that, I just jumped into my head there. I hadn't thought about it in years, but I remember it was like Amazon Web Services and all those servers were kind of being taken down. But I don't know if that was for political leanings or whether that was allowing people to say like racial slurs or something like that. They found some kind of justification for removing it, but that's the dangers of, I suppose, everything being outsourced today and no one owning their own infrastructure or that kind of stuff. Even the internet service providers, you're at the mercy of them as well. They can cut you off. So again, thinking of again the ideology of why you're doing what you're doing, and why is it important that people talk about politics and religion? Like, why is that an important thing?
Well, I mean, first thing is it's both of those things. Obviously, there's billions of people who are interested and live that, with religion and with politics, maybe on a lesser degree. And so you can't deny it. We live in a connected society. And so, we can try to put our hand under the sand, but it's just, we're just connected. So that would be my first thing, is that, I don't want to live a life where I'm just like ignoring everything around me, especially when it affects me. Like some of those things, they turn into laws, they turn into other, where our tax money goes, et cetera, et cetera. So, even if you want to put your head in the sand, like, it's affecting you, to a certain degree, and it's affecting people in your life for sure. So that would be my first thing. I think that, a lot of the things that we measure, of importance in our lives, and I know I'm guilty of it, so that's why I'm maybe projecting. It's, when we can see an immediate benefit or we can see an immediate result, right? So if I do this, I'm going to get this, right? And I think some of this stuff, like with religion and politics, there's not an immediate result. I mean, unless there's like an election and it's a one-day election, you see the results that's there. But when we talk about ideologies and we talk about, like just these discussions or disagreements and stuff, there's no result that's going to come of it, right, after that. And there's no result that you can say, see, I told you this, and, so I think because of that, it's just very difficult. It's very difficult to have those conversations. And that's why I kind of go back to what I originally said, is like the facts aren't really important. Because first of all, the facts are probably wrong, misleading, incomplete. But even if they were, like, our positions in those topics usually come from our heart. They're not coming from our brain. They originate from our heart. Then we try to use our brain to justify what we're feeling. But I think that that's where I kind of go back to, like, hey, we need to get people to just listen and be open. And I think if we can get there, we'll have made some progress.
Yeah, and it's values that are informing people's beliefs. I guess when you think of politics, that comes from and religion as well, comes from the deepest values of someone's whole inner being, their personality or their soul or whatever you want to call it. It's really the values that are informing these political beliefs, and I guess that's probably why people get so defensive about it. Again, thinking of going back to 2020, there was something more going on than just here are two ideas or two ways of running the country. It really, I guess, it boiled down to two different worldviews, two different ideologies, or at least that's what that's what the news and the social media was trying to present it as, a clash of worldviews and cultures, and that's what makes it really difficult to, I guess, foster healthy conversations, because people, when that is challenged, people think you're challenging them as a person. And even when it comes to things, again, I'm not sure. I probably should ask you, are you religious yourself? Do you mind me asking that?
I'm not. No, you can ask. Yeah, I'm not religious myself.
So as a religious person, I think of things like even talking about like sexuality or abortion or these kind of things that are considered hallmarks of religious debate these days. These are things that when people are challenged on those, especially even sexuality these days, it's people treat it because it's part of them. You're challenging them, and my question would be, when in talking about these things, how can we cool down the conversation? How can we get it to a more objective way of talking about things rather than it being personal or ad hominem? And are there ways that you've kind of designed your site to try and take some of the heat off of these, not even in the way the site's built, but just trying to foster a conversation where people can look at things a little more objectively?
Yeah, well, I think even we built it that way. So when we have the articles, this is on the app specifically, we have them like side by side, right? And then, we have like a neutral fact box. So we come in and say, hey, we're the neutral party. These are kind of the facts in there. So even with the design, we've had that. But I think, it's going to take education. It's going to take time, because if there were other people like us, people would be able to come on and say, oh yeah, you're just like this. But when you're the only one, people are coming on like the first thing, and I get feedback. And so first thing people do is, are you left leaning? Are you right leaning? What are you about?
Sure.
What's your goal? What's your next? And then when they can't figure it out, they're like, hey, what's going on? Kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
and
confusing.
So I think, and the reason people do that is because that's what the world is, and,
right. We like
people,
to categorize people.
Yeah, and people know, like when they come on, MSNBC or they come on Fox or wherever it is, like maybe the people on there think that they're getting the truth and straight, but the other side for sure is seeing it as a bias, right? And so I think we, as humans, we kind of, just the way our environment is today, we're automatically, it's a survival thing. We're looking for, hey, what's their goal? What are they trying to do? What tribe is this belong to? Is this my tribe or not? And so I think, that's gonna take some time, and I think it's really important for us to balance like who comes on. We're not just about political, like we have sports on there, we have other kind of categories. And so it's not just a political thing, but it's important that we get a diverse group of audience as we start to grow this platform, so that people feel like, hey, you know what, this is a balanced place. It's not like, one side is taking over any other side.
Yeah. And, it's like you said, I'm guessing the whole thing is, like you said, not even politics, but the big questions. Would that be right? Like the big things that are important to people?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have 13 categories. So like news is one of them. So news would be obviously what's trending on the news. But like with the other ones, yeah, I mean, it would be, important things that people are talking about, what's trending. And we try to pick things that have, decent support on both sides. We don't want something that, it's just a landslide on one, because it's not really much to talk about. But really we want to, again, our job is to present it in a objective way, in a fair way, and then let the user, decide for themselves what they think. That's really important for us.
Yeah, it's well, I'm thinking, obviously as a new user to the site, I would be thinking going on there, like you said, can I trust the motives of the site? Is there like a hidden agenda to try and get people to believe a certain way? And are there things, or have you purposely designed the site in order to be as neutral as possible? Or are there like editorials that were is there I guess for want of a better term, is there a site-wide ideology or belief system?
No, I mean, I think if you go on the app, you'll probably see pretty quickly like we're pretty neutral. Now there's a user-generated section, which is equivalent to like social media anywhere, where users can post, and obviously we don't control that. But the first thing you see with the articles, that's our writers and our editors, it's all neutral, and you can see right away. You'll be able to see, hey, this is This is not leaning to any one side, and we have to actually be extra careful on things that you would not even think are important to notice. For example, like even the titles. Like when we come up with the titles, a lot of times, and we have multiple people that go through it to make sure we don't have any bias. But sometimes even when you ask a question, the way you phrase it or the words you use can seem like, hey, that's a biased way you asked that. Why did you ask it this way? If you talk about undocumented immigrants or illegal immigrants, it's the same thing. But if you use one word or the other, then you're considered biased. Or if you say if someone is 19, they're a teen, or you can say they're a man because they're technically a man because they're an adult. If it's talking about crime or whatever, depending on what your conspiracy theory is, you can say, hey, we're painting them as a man because we want them to look bad, or we're painting them as a teen because we want them to look innocent. So there's so many different nuances in there that we have to kind of watch for. So we have our own kind of internal processes to ensure that we weed that out. And then, we have both sides, so that kind of check each other. And then lastly, we have multiple people that kind of look at it. So hopefully with all of those combs, we kind of eliminate, most of those things. But it was very interesting kind of going through the process of building the platform, is that, I learned all of these things that I wasn't even aware of that are just, there. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. Because, I remember last season on this show, we had a guest called Jason Woodruff, who runs a news site called The Pour Over. I'm not sure if you've ever come across it, but it is a Christian news site, but it's trying to be, like you said, a neutral Christian news site, which it's meant to present the news, as plainly as possible, with as little, with no leanings, but also providing, I guess, what you would call an eternal religious perspective. So in terms of for example, it's reporting on the war in Ukraine, but at the end of it, it'll just have a thing saying, wars come and go. Let's not just, treat it like this is going to be necessarily the end of the world. There's going to be wars. There's going to be more wars. Not that it's not bad, but
right. Or
even the Super Bowl. If you're watching the Super Bowl and you're letting that ruin your whole week because your team lost, you might need to, check yourself a little bit, because
right.
You're allowing sports to become, and I guess there's probably, he talked about how they have not only writers from different perspectives, which is similar to what you have, but also, like you said, people that, vet them, and they have actually a panel, I think, of people with different perspectives. Is that something that you have, like a panel or a wide range of people with different viewpoints that read over things?
Yeah, we don't have a panel, but we have kind of our internal group editors that, we check each other. And we have certain rules. For example, if someone is writing, they can only contribute in certain things, and there's like a fact box. And so we have these rules in place and processes in place. But it's really we do a really good job of checking each other versus saying trust me, because I think when you do trust me, we know how that works because that's what everybody else is doing. And so I think that strategy, we're no better. We're human just like anybody else. So the only thing we do differently is we check each other, and we purposely make sure that, we don't have people that all think alike as well. And that's part of it as well. But it's a lot more challenging, I think, for the last couple of years of learning, how difficult it is, and us learning about ourselves and like how much of our daily lives we've been biased, or, without knowing it, without even knowing it. So but yeah, I think we do a pretty good job, and have a lot of systems and processes in place to ensure neutrality.
Yeah. What do you think of, this is kind of random, but what do you think of community notes on X, or what was Twitter? Because I know for a while people were moving towards fact checking, but then it's kind of, I suppose the more free speech version of that is like a presentation of the facts without taking down the original post. So if someone was to post something blatantly untrue on your page, what would be your natural instinct? Is there a fact checker, or do you just allow the community to sort of check itself?
Yeah, so we have a what are you pondering section, which is the community section where users can post. And no, we would not fact check that. Yeah, so it's just we're not any higher or better than any other human. So yeah, we're not in a position to fact check, that. Now our writers, our content, we have our processes, we have our group and all that. But with user generated, yeah, if somebody says, whatever they want to say, as long as it doesn't violate the First Amendment or anything violence, like we will not be fact checking. And we've had that where somebody's reported somebody and said, I don't like what they say, and we're like, we're sorry, like we can't.
Yeah,
We're not here to make people feel good.
Yeah.
We're here to communicate effectively.
Yeah. How do you feel about fact checkers in general? Just on a
Yeah,
personal
I'm really
level?
against that. I'm really against fact checkers because they're human beings, and like I said, I can sit here for the next 10 hours and give you examples of small things that you wouldn't even think are influential that affect people's decisions or perceptions, and fact checkers are no different. And so yeah, I'm very, very against. I just don't understand how any one person or any group of people can decide what's a fact. And if we're talking about, what's 1 + 1, that's fine, but that's not what fact checkers are doing.
No.
They're checking other things that
It's opinion checking as well
Yeah,
as facts, really.
right. And so
The
it's very
opinion
dangerous.
police.
Yeah, it's very dangerous. I mean, if you look at the dictators and a lot of the bad things that have happened in the past, they were all technically fact checking and censoring. So, they're taking cues from that. As soon as you start to tell people what's right or wrong, first of all, you're not qualified, and I know that because there's no humans that are qualified, for that. You just don't have enough information, to be able to fact check.
Yeah, and how do you know if something is right or wrong? For example, in the pandemic that exposed, like nobody knew what was right and wrong about the coronavirus because it was new.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where you were seeing some ridiculous things being taken down because, and I'm not, I'm definitely not an anti-vaxxer or anything like that. For me, I was very, what's the word? I was as neutral as you could be on that because I saw positives and negatives of both sides of things. And, when it came to looking at social media and for all of them to be completely and totally on the side of being like pro-vaccine, pro-lockdown, you would think there would, in a free world, there would be at least some kind of variation. But to me, it was really unsettling to see how there was a accepted worldview and an accepted opinion. And it was similar with other elections. I feel like in the past there has been, and that's probably where Trump has come along, there's been an accepted worldview or belief system that when it's challenged, people freak out, and that actually draws more people to the opposite side. It's counterproductive. So, the idea of getting people to engage with ideas that they don't agree with, I think it's more than just finding out what's right and wrong. Like we said earlier, it's about you can actually do more. You can actually help your own side more by engaging with the other side than by shutting it off. At least that's what I think. And that's where I think fact checking comes into that as well. When you shut down certain opinions, it actually sends people to go and dig it out even more and set up their own alternative sites and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and again, I'm going to give you another bad analogy. I got a bunch of those, but you have the wisdom of the crowd. I don't know if I think it's called wisdom of the crowd. But they did this initially with cows, where they would cut up the cows and then they would try to get people to guess and guess the total weight. And you can use that with, I've seen experiments like you put a jar of like bubblegum balls or whatever, and then you get like 1 or 2 really good experts to guess, and then you get like 50 just random people, kids, whatever, and they'll always get extremely close to it as a group. Now, the reason I bring it up is when you look at that every time, you have the majority of the people who are kind of in the middle of close to or in the range, but then you always get the extreme guesses, right, on the numbers. So there might be 500 balls, somebody might say 50,000, right, or somebody might say 7.
Right.
But the interesting thing is that group as a whole will do better than the 2 or 3 experts who are close to the center. And the point I'm making is without those extreme guesses, you would the mean or the medium wouldn't be accurate, right? And so I think sometimes maybe it's a bad analogy, but sometimes when we look at the extreme people in society or in our groups, we kind of look at them as like, hey, they're just counterproductive, wasteful, whatever, they shouldn't be here. But we just don't know, right, where that benefit is or how that affects us or even when that affects us. Some things we do today doesn't affect for generations, right? And so we always look at it again from our selfish personal view, what I can see today, what I can measure today. And that's just not what reality is, right? And so that's why it's really, really important that, we let everybody speak as long as they don't, again, violate our minimum requirements of violence, and it's just that society just historically has done better when you do that.
Yeah. And being British, the big thing that comes to mind thinking about some of these opinions that were considered unpopular or whatever, that actually were kind of, it seemed like they were kind of being stifled. Our version would be something like Brexit, whereas here it was probably something like Donald Trump. And I think I don't think either of those are particularly extreme, but let's say there are people who come along that are like neo-Nazis. I think having a neo-Nazi and like a communist, like super left-wing communist, having those people in as part of discourse, if they're just there and they're not, no one's really engaging with them and no one's really paying much attention, I think it actually kind of steers people towards the middle, because they're like, they can kind of see the natural boundaries of extremism, and they can say, well, I'm not, it's like that. What, I can't remember the name of the term, but it's when you, it's a psychological term, I guess, whenever you try to, people tend to not go for the extremes. They try to kind of anchor themselves in the middle. And I wish I remembered the term, but I remember someone explaining to me that, if you give like a multiple choice question and there are two kind of extreme answers and then a couple in the middle, people tend to go for the one, they're like, well, it can't be the biggest one, so it has to be the next one along, whereas sometimes that is the right answer. But it's I think people kind of do that naturally with politics as well. They see the two extremes and they're kind of like, well, I don't agree with that guy and I don't agree with this person, so I'm probably somewhere in between. Whereas when you make that person on the extreme a martyr, then I think that makes people think, well, why are they shutting them down? Why are they, trying to stop us from engaging with that? Because I don't know, they must be afraid. There must be something they're hiding. And that's where these conspiracies kind of come along. So I think I agree with what you said. I like that you have things set up in a way that you allow the community to, as you said, sort of the wisdom of the crowd kind of dictate, or that people tend to follow the logic of the majority of the users. And I think that's a really healthy way to look at it. So why don't we take a little bit of time now, just coming towards the end. If you want to run through the website and the app, what do people encounter when they go on it? If you want to go through like the concept, what is the premise? What does it look like when people sign in and they interact? What is this? What is the app and what is the site?
Yeah, sure. And I'll be brief. It's pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, when you come on, again, it'd be better if you just go to your app store, just type in Ponderly, and then you can download it on your own. And it's quickly, you set up a quick account, just click, and you get a discover page. And this is where we kind of pin like trending articles. But when you sign up, you get to select the categories that you enjoy or you're interested in. So if you're
like
science,
a For You page.
Yeah. And so if you're like science, sports, whatever you want, you click on that. And so after the discover, there's like a what are you pondering section. That's where you can post and other users can post. And then there's a connect section. So the connect section is interesting. This is where when you start engaging with the app, so you start at the end of every article, there's poll questions, you can vote. You can you can do things like that. The system actually notes that, and then it will know Josh is a certain way, or he likes certain things, and then it'll start to populate other users that are similar to you, and they'll put a percentage next to it. So say, hey, Josh, Amir is 78%. That means 78% of his interactions were, close to yours. And so
okay, that's interesting.
Now you can see that, and now you can directly there, you can reach out to me, be like, hey, Amir, and you can, when you click on me, as long as I can put it private, but as long as it's public, you can pick something that I've commented on or something I voted on. There's a button there, you click on it, and you can literally just chat, you can say, hey, Amir, like, I like what you said here. And you start a conversation,
Right.
So it's kind of like organically matching there. And then below that is the MyPond section where, like the articles that you subscribe to, for example, it'll give you relevant stuff. So like for you. So like, if you're into science and sports, you'll start to get science and sports versus kind of like everything. And then the people that you follow, just like on social media, if they're posting things, if they're commenting or liking or voting, they'll pop up as well. So you can say, hey, if you're my friend, you say, hey, you'll see how I'm interacting with the app, and you can engage with me as well. So it's a full on kind of social media in that sense. And then there's gamification. So you get points, for example, for doing certain things like voting, for example, or making a comment that enough people you'll get, so you're kind of rewarded for productive comments. And then those points you can redeem for actually like merchandise directly from there for free. Or, you can also use it for just like badges. So like you can kind of say, hey, I earned this many points, and it kind of attaches to it. So those are kind of, and then, there's like, messaging, and there's, all kinds of other kind of cool social media features there. And yeah, and then obviously you can post on your own. Now, one thing with us that's very unique that we're really proud of is, in order to post, it does cost you a point. Now, you don't have to pay for that point, but you do need to make sure that you engage with the platform to earn points in order to post. So the idea is, so you do get one post a day for free, but outside of that, it'll cost you points. So the idea is we want better quality posts versus just quantity.
And people, you want to reward people who interact a little more with the community.
Yeah, and then not only that, but it still costs them a point, which they didn't have to pay for, but they had to do something. So the idea is they'll probably not waste it on some dumb post. They're going to say, hey, you know what? It's not easy to post on here. Yeah, I'd rather, put a better quality. And so we'll hopefully limit some of the trolling and stuff like that because of it. And then again, you can start your own groups and you can have your own kind of community. But basically, we built this ecosystem where, people are able to share their ideas and connect with the other side and really do away with a lot of the trolling. I mean, we can't guarantee it because we don't control it. We don't want to control it, but it's like the nice restaurant thing where, hey, if it's a nicer restaurant, there'll be less of it and people are incentivized to be more productive. So that's the essence of it. I didn't want to go into all the little nitty gritty details. I'm sure people can play around with it themselves, but I think they'll find, especially as we grow, the way we have kind of the algorithm and stuff. So the more people that come on, the better the suggestions will be, and the better we'll get at connecting people and building those communities. So,
So every post is effectively a question. Is that right?
For us, they're articles, but for users, they can post whatever they want. So they can just say, hey, they can have a picture of their house, like, hey, this is my house. They can do whatever they want.
Oh, okay. So you can post whatever, and people
for
can
interact. For users, yeah. For us, we have articles which are questions. Yeah. So was the Supreme Court right to overturn, what was it? Colorado, the ban on Colorado, right, for Trump. So or whatever, yeah. So like, we pose it as a question, and it's very thought out, and then we source the article, the writer. So they're actual articles, but that's our section. The user generated section, it's just regular people, just like an Instagram, For You page or whatever.
Yeah. And when you said those articles, they have kind of both sides presented, is that user submitted content, or is that the kind of editorial content?
No, that's us. Yeah. So that's not user. So we have our own writers, editors, and all that. So that one that's credible, that's neutral. But that's only our section, which is discover. The other section is user. Yeah.
And users can, like you said, they can post whatever they want, and can, so they could strike up a conversation about one of these more contentious issues if they wanted to.
Yep, they absolutely could, as long as they don't cross that violence or the anything illegal or anything like that. Yeah, they absolutely could.
Yeah, and I was thinking something was interesting when you said, obviously people want to connect with others or they might want to connect with people who are like-minded or have similar views. How much do you seek to challenge people inherently in the page? How much do you want people to engage with the opposite?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. But I think, it's interesting when we talked, when I did my focus groups and read, like, with people, it comes with feelings. Once you feel comfortable in a place, then the rest of the things open up. And so, again, the tribalism thing, we're all guilty of it. I mean, we all want to feel welcome and wanted and comfortable. And so that's the first step. Once you get that, then it's about engagement. So you know how I mentioned it'll categorize by the percentage you match. There also, if you start scrolling, you'll get percentage that you don't match. And so, you can click on, you can click out other people too. So, it's your choice, right? But we don't want to tell people what to do. We don't want to force people what to do. We just want to give them, the ability to, if they want it, and create that environment.
Okay, yeah. So just making a place where people feel comfortable to engage with as much as as much what's the word, conflict as they're ready to to deal
It's up
with
to,
on a
I mean, if
particular
you're
day.
interested in religion and politics, then, and that's actually one of the sections we're looking to add here. Another category, we have 13 now, is religion. I've kind of held off because I think with religion, it starts to get, it can get ugly, as you probably
Yeah,
know. So
sure.
I
Yeah.
want to make sure like we don't start off with a with a mess what mess there, and but so we're looking to add a religion category as well. But whatever you're interested in, I mean, you can go in there, you can just read, and that's it. You don't have to engage with the app, you don't have to participate. You can go private, so you can just watch if you want, or if you engage, then you get all the benefits. And I think you can start matching with people, start engaging, building your own community, all of those things. And so it's really however you want to use it is up to you.
Yeah, religion's a tough one because people, there isn't as well. Maybe there is. Maybe that's unfair. I was going to say there isn't as much of a continuum. It's really you kind of, if you're in a religion, you generally subscribe to, in most cases, a particular point or a particular set of beliefs. Although this whole podcast is dedicated to finding people that don't quite fit into particular, stereotypes or whatever you want to call, or categories, neat categories. But it gets, I find it always gets difficult whenever you try to have interfaith dialogue because people don't want to. I don't know. It's people don't really, they don't want to change their mind. I guess it's all about trying to change the minds of others, and then it kind of gets a little tricky. So that could be an interesting one to see how that plays out, and
Yeah.
how you figure that out in the future.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're ready to go. It's just I just want to kind of take it by steps. There's other features like we have trivia that we're coming on to keep people engaged. So pop-up trivia where you can earn points, on fun stuff on the category that you're interested in. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff coming. There's a lot of development coming, and we're excited about it. But I think at the core of it, like without taking too many steps ahead, I need to make sure that people feel comfortable, they feel welcome, and the rest of the stuff will come as it is, because at the end of the day, people want to be where people are. That's what it comes down to. I give you the restaurant analogy. When if you see two restaurants next to each other, one is nice, it has everything, brand new everything, and next one is like, broken down, but you see a line of people out of the broken down one, guess where you want to go? You want to go, you're going to go where people, and obviously the appearance, it looks like, hey, this is nicer, and it might be cheaper and all those things. But so I think it's the same logic as for us, is that I think sometimes people focus too much on, making sure the paint color is right and all of these things. But it's just ultimately you want to get people there, and you want to get the right people there. And, we grow from there.
And do you find the community is growing well? Like people are
Yeah, I
engaging
think
with this?
we're just starting. So for the last couple of years, we've been doing mostly development. And so a lot of the testing is like, family and friends and local kind of people we know. So we're now just starting to reach out. And we're also starting to reach out. We don't have any we haven't had any investors at this point, so we're reaching out to investors, so we can start to get some accelerated growth, and start to do some online and other kind of marketing stuff to really start to grow. But yeah, right now our strategy is to get the word out, get some authentic guerrilla kind of marketing going to real users, and then we're really excited.
So open to people signing up right now?
Correct. Yep. Just go to your app store, whatever phone you have, and just type in Ponderly, and then you just go from there. It's free. It's free to use, free to engage, and would appreciate you engaging, using, and any feedback. Ultimately, we want to bring people together and build something that's an alternative to all of these platforms and media that's that we're all don't have a choice of today.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, and thank you for joining me tonight to talk about it. I love to engage with these ideas where it's just like the mission of our my podcast, trying to bring people together, talk better, to communicate more effectively. It's always great to hear about the ways people are finding space or creating spaces where people can do that. So, appreciate you joining me tonight, and I'll put in the description below. I'll put the link to Ponderly, so everyone go and check that out. Go download. Maybe we can see a few people from this community on there and interacting with the posts. But yeah, it's I think it's awesome. I love what you guys are doing. So I want to give you encouragement on that. And thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Josh. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in to watch. Like I said, go join Ponderly, and go ahead and hit subscribe below and hit the like button. Follow us on Instagram as well, if you haven't done that already. But that's all for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next time on the 2 Things You Shouldn't Talk About.